Hi everyone, Privet from Kazakhstan. I'm Bilkis Bahari. Our speaker today is Zuhaila Sedek. She has been involved in the media industry for more than a decade. And she was a journalist at Straits Times. She was my senior actually when I joined the company, and then she moved to the communications industry. So Zuhaila is actually an all-rounder in the media industry because she was a journalist previously, and then now she is the head of strategic communications unit at Malaysia's Ministry of International Trade and Industry. Given her experience, Zuhaila basically understands the media industry in all angles. Hi.
Hey, hi.
How-
Sorry, I'm live from the airport. I'm leaving for Sabah in a short while.
Oh wow. Okay. Hi to our viewers. I
Hi.
I was just talking, telling the viewers about
Mhm.
that you were a journalist before and now you are
Yes,
communications, and basically you understand the media industry in all angles.
yes.
Uh, you believe that storytelling is the key to winning everything, right? And it is.
Yes, I mean, yes.
Okay, let's start with you just telling about yourself, about your career experience, and why storytelling is important for communication.
Okay, hi everyone. First of all, thanks Bilkis for having me,
You're welcome.
and sorry for the slight delay.
No.
Um, so yes, you rightly mentioned earlier, as a former reporter, it does help a lot in my current work as a PR practitioner. So, and the in terms of contextualizing messaging, I think storytelling now, because speed is a very strong variable. You know, the faster you are in sharing information, the more relevant you can be. It can influence you to get more following. But moving forward, I think in the current situation, it's also very important to be able to give a context to a certain situation, especially now that everybody can share their stories on their own platform, you know. So output is no longer an issue. Now we're talking about qualities. So qualities, of course, is in terms of the qualities of your stories. It depends highly on whether it makes sense to most people or not. So how does this make sense to most people? By giving it a context. And this context, of course, you have to look at the segments of people that you're targeting. And I think my background as a reporter, I spent about a decade writing for a newspaper, and I moved to a website for a short while and to a magazine. So that gives you a perspective from the other side of the, from the reporter's point of view. And as a PR practitioner, it helps me in understanding what the media wants.
And how do individuals and businesses develop stories to tell to the public?
Well, it is not a one size fits all strategy. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to sell something, then of course you have to cater to that group of people, right? But if you're trying to influence a decision, that's a completely different ball game, because you need to think of how you want to orchestrate that. And storytelling, a lot of times it focuses on brand building, and a lot of people don't realize that brand building actually takes a lot of time. So you need to plant something and nurture it and wait for it to grow. So this process of growing a brand is very important, because throughout the process you'll identify what works and what doesn't work, right? So I think in the current situation, it's very, very complicated. And you have all these like cyber troopers, you know, people who are keyboard warriors. They don't necessarily have any context to anything, but they can be like fuel to champion a message that cater to somebody else's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have these red bean bags team, when if it's a political agenda, you need like whole group of red bean bags team that help you to champion a message. But when it comes to the commercial aspect, the principle is more or less the same, but how you execute it is slightly different. As a ministry, working for a ministry, of course, you have to put on a lot of hats. You have to cater to a lot of agenda. You have to cater to the riot agenda, the people's agenda. You have to cater to the corporate agenda. You have to cater to the government of the day agenda. So hang on, I found there's like a flying mosquito. So yeah, I think
In the
he's trying to distract me. Come again?
You're in the boarding room, is it, at the airport?
No, I'm here. Like if you can see, like there are like chairs around me. I
Oh,
have like people, so people might be wondering like, what am I doing talking to a phone, right? But like this.
normal.
But no worries. I'm happy to share. But again, your question earlier, right? About how different it is now. Correct or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. So right now, because you have a lot of platforms to champion one's messages, but now it's all about quality. So like I said earlier, the quality really is dependent on how you give a context to your message and how it can build a long-lasting relationship. Um, it's very important to understand that there are a lot of brands out there, and everybody can do. I think if you have like one product, maybe like 10,000 people are championing the same message for that same product. So how do you stand out? Is really how you make them feel. So this is what we talk what we refer to creating a brand emotion. So your messages, your storytelling should be able at the end of the day create a brand emotion. So this brand emotion is what ties you to that audience and what ties you to this set of audience for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And you know, COVID completely changed everything. And
Mhm.
it also changed the way business and organizations communicate with the public.
Mhm.
You know, information are all online now, and those who don't believe in digital media are forced to embrace it. They have no other choice. But my question
Mhm.
is how information can be communicated clearly, precisely, and accurately to the public who today wants answer to everything in just 1 second.
Yeah, I think sometimes, like I said earlier, speed is a very important variable. You need to respond to people as soon as possible. You know, in customer service, right? Conventionally, the rule of thumb is that you have to respond to them within, say, 3 days. But if you do that now, that's like you're digging your own graveyard lah. You cannot like make people wait that long. So it is very important now. The rule of thumb is that you have to respond to people within 60 seconds.
Okay.
So that's how fast you have to respond to people. But that is of course in terms of in the context of customer service. So but again, we need to also educate the public. you know um, just because a message has a lot of engagement, it doesn't necessarily mean what the message is saying is accurate. Um, because the nature of the people, right? They like to they like to share things that are very interesting to them. No, but in the case of the
Uh-huh.
Ministry of International Trade and Industry, our topics are not necessarily sexy because you don't really talk about trade, investment, and industries on a daily basis. Like I'll be very surprised if a group of friends would sit on a table at the mama and talk about trade. That yeah, unless if you have something to do with that industry. So this is again, I think keeping it simple, use simple words. The way you present that message is also very important.
Okay.
You don't want, you should know this, like in the editorial room, right? When I first started, I remember my editor would, well, they would be telling me, Suala, don't write to impress, write to make people understand. Because when you're writing, it's not about you, it's about what you're telling people and what exactly you want people to remember,
Exactly.
but yeah, most of the time people remember the most basic things. And because when you keep it simple, a lot more people can understand you.
Uh-huh.
So that's why, this is also a challenge for a lot of people, especially for even for myself and my team, right? Because we have a very diverse group of audiences.
Uh-huh.
You have businesses, you have investors, you have suppliers, but at the same time you also need to talk or communicate to the public. So the best way to do this is to present something that the general mass would be able to understand.
You always have to remember this KISS rule, right? Keep it simple,
Yes, exactly.
silly.
Yes, but there's also a gray area, because you don't want to appear like you don't know what you don't want to appear too simple as well.
Okay.
I always believe that anything that is too much is
Uh-huh.
never good. If you're too simple, it's never good. If you're too complicated, also it's never good.
Uh-huh.
So this is why you have to keep on getting that output out there, so that you're the right pace and the ideal balance that you have to achieve when you present your communication.
Uh-huh. And crisis is something that is unavoidable. And
Mm-hmm.
this pandemic itself is a crisis. But as a strategic communications expert, how could storytelling be used to manage crisis?
Yeah, it can actually help you achieve a lot of things. Uh, Crisis is when you're okay as a public PR practitioner, right? When a crisis happens, your role is to contain. Imagine a crisis like a fire. So a fire just happened. So in crisis communication is about containing that fire, making sure that it remains small, and eventually it fade away. So crisis is the same. So what as a communicator, your role is basically to influence something. In this case, you are trying to influence an ideal,
Mm-hmm.
a sentiment. You want to influence a certain sentiment, right? So in the case of COVID, you want people to be calm, collected, and informed. So people cannot make decisions based on speculations. So when COVID happened, a lot of people suddenly became a health expert. A lot of people suddenly, like, uh, because with, for example, WhatsApp communication
Uh-huh.
is so simple to get a false message across within a span of few seconds.
Exactly.
So if you can outreach a lot of people in a very short time, trying to influence them of a certain emotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say, communication is all about creating emotion.
Oh,
What
sure.
emotion that you want to achieve? You want to make people feel proud. You want to make people feel concerned.
Mm-hmm.
You want people to feel impressed. So as communicator, identify this sentiment and identify this emotion that you want people to feel. Then you know how to craft your messages.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of COVID, in our experience, we had a lot of issues when we first started because nobody know how to manage a pandemic,
It's
right? This is the
unpredictable.
first time. Yes, unprecedented, definitely. So this is the first time for the rest of the world. So you are bound to make mistakes. But we've learned a lot from this crisis. And I think this this experience is something that money cannot buy. So with this experience, you will be able to manage future's crisis. And it's not something that you can go for trading and create a crisis, you know. This is like real life. And you have a visual aid
Mm-hmm.
basically on what could happen, you know, if you don't do certain things, or what could happen if you do it this way. So I think there's a lot of blessings in the current situation, and if anything, it makes all of us more matured and more informed, more knowledgeable, and managing crisis in our own right.
Exactly. And to those
Mhm.
of you who don't know Zuhaila, she is the head of Strategic Communications Unit at Malaysia's Ministry of International Trade and Industry. That's a
Yes, correct.
huge responsibility that you're carrying on your shoulders, you know?
Yes, yes, and when you say that, it sounds very tiring.
No, it sounds wow. Actually, to be honest,
No, I mean, it's a very, it provides a platform to experiment with different type of storytelling.
uh-huh.
Because a lot of people don't realize that working for the government is very rewarding in terms of knowledge. You know, in terms of gathering your knowledge, because you have so many types of audiences, so many contexts to articulate. So this when you do all this, the process of doing this, it builds your knowledge and your experience. And I think if there are any Malaysians watching this, I just would like to share that working for the government as a civil servant, it is a very rewarding experience working as a civil servant lah. So a lot of people think, you know, people used to think that government servants, they goyang kaki, you know, minum teh tarik, you know, that's not the case at all. I can vouch it with all my heart.
First,
Yeah, and the long, yeah,
they tarik at 4 p.m.
yeah. I don't know how people get that time. Like, how do they know it's 4 p.m.? It could be 4:15.
Usually, you know, it's tea time, so people will go to mama for teh tarik and all that. Uh,
Yeah.
what you said about storytelling is actually very important because now with the age of social media, digital media, you whoever you are, even if you don't own a business, you're an individual, popular on social media especially, uh, telling a story is very important, and you have to make it personal, right? It has to be related
Mm-hmm.
to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, before you share your story, because there are a lot of things about you that you want to tell, right? But
Uh,
you need to identify what would be the most important and the most interesting for people to know. So people like to know personal stuff. For example, like you know, if I can use you as a case study, you know, you put in your profile a Malaysian Burmese living in Kazakhstan. That sentence alone is already it tells you a lot of stories.
uh-huh.
So you know, so you need to similarly for other people, what if they are selling a product, right? What would be the most interesting values that the masses, the larger group of people can relate to? If they are selling telekong, right?
Uh-huh.
So Siti Khadijah is an excellent example.
Uh-huh.
So because they sell high quality praying garments, right? Telekong for ladies, and you know, the Malays, we take pride in our praying garments, and they use they use the message of present the best telekong for your mother,
Uh-huh.
present the best telekong for your wife. You know, the exclusive punya telekong for your loved ones.
Uh-huh.
So because you know, in everyday life, right, we would buy the Malays would buy the best telekung for your loved ones. You know, so it's something that memang you take pride of. So if you can identify this variable, then you play around this message and create a sentiment around it. So of course we want positive sentiment lah, emotional punya sentiment. So say give me a product that you have in mind. Okay, how about this? Fruit juice. You know, there's one fruit juice brand in Malaysia. It's called House Boom. They sell carbonated drinks, fruit drinks lah, but carbonated. But a lot of other people are selling the same stuff. But how is it possible that they're doing a lot better than the rest? Because they sell the image of it being a youthful brand, it being like an energy drink, you know. So before you want to tell your story, identify clearly and in the most simplistic way, what about your products that stand out the most? Yeah.
So, when we talk about social media, right? When we tell our story, how do we? Of course, people like to know about personal stories, but how do we not make it too personal? Because you know, some people they are very open with everything, but some people they are not too open. They don't want to share every single thing that's going on in their lives.
Well, you can definitely build your brand by association. If you don't want to sell too much of yourself, you can definitely associate yourself with prominent figures. You know, you can always associate yourself with a bigger brand, so you can latch on their reputation. But again, this is a lot of work. It and it takes time. Brand building takes time. But I would say if you're selling yourself, if you're selling your own personal identity, that's a risk that you have to take lah.
Okay.
You know, if you the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. So it depends on your risk appetite. So if you want to have a stronger set of followers, and those who are more loyal to you because they can relate to you, then you have got to give a little bit of yourself to the masses. A single mother can definitely relate to other single mothers, right?
Okay.
Yeah, those who love fashion can definitely relate to people who like fashion.
Or those
So
who want to lose weight or be healthy, they can relate
exactly,
others. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So find the common things that common people do, and find a relation to yourself, and use that as a catalyst to build your brand.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I won't take much of your time. I know you have to go now.
Yes, I'm so sorry, but you know, I'm happy to do another session if you like.
Let
Yeah.
you can delve into it in more details.
Yeah, and also, you know, your experience, our experience as a former journalist, right? It helps a lot in finding this hook to your followers, because you know the principle of writing. It has to be about if it's a crisis, if it's newsy, if there's a proximity to it, if there's like anything that has a superlative, the biggest, the largest, you know, those are the things that people like to know. So this helps a lot when you want to build your own brand, because you know what people want to read, you know what people want to listen to. So, but the tricky part here, I mean, the current situation is really be very specific in your engagement,
Okay.
because now it's no longer about generic engagement. It's about really targeting people who are really in your sphere, like in your ecosystem. People who are selling games, right? Gaming products. They have to cater to a very specific and dedicated group of people. Young people who don't mind to spend money on softwares, on even the device to play the PS2, for example. So all these if you have money, a lot of organizations who have money, they use big data to identify these people with this trait. So this is how people do marketing these days. They use big data, they use AI technologies to search for people with the common traits. Yes,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
So I think for people, small businesses especially, who that cannot get the information on big data yet, they can at least, uh, clearly know who they're targeting. And also when they build the story, they just have to answer the basic questions like who, what, where, when, why, and how.
yes. And you know the five W's and one H, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, there's another component these days, which is like why should people care? The
Okay.
five W's, one H. But yes, you get all the information out there.
Uh,
But another component is to think about why should people care about this five W's, one H. You know, so it's also important to think about that.
it's like how will it benefit them, right? How will this
Yes.
lives?
And then for people who don't have the means to get access to technologies, they can actually use social media analytics.
Uh-huh.
Uh, um, Familiarize yourself with analytics on Facebook. If you have a Facebook business, always look at the data on your audiences, whether you are catering more towards female or male.
Uh-huh.
If you think that you want to engage more male, then put up more male-centric content. You know, and Instagram is a great example as well. Set and make sure that you set your Instagram account as a business account,
Uh-huh.
because it gives you that analytics. You know what time is the best time for you to talk to people. You know which location they are in your country.
Uh-huh.
So you know how old and how young they are. So these analytics help people to customize their stories.
Okay. I think that should be our next session. How
Yes,
social media in order for you to tell your story.
yes.
That would be a,
Let's schedule another session.
yeah.
And yeah, Bilkis, thanks so much for the opportunity. I do have to run,
Okay.
and yeah,
Bye. Take care, be safe, and keep
you
it.
too. Yes, take care, yeah, in Kazakhstan.
All right.
Okay, bye.